Hi, my name is Tanya and welcome to my small backyard vegetable garden here in central Victoria. I picked up this compost thermometer the other day because I am curious to see what temperature all my beds are running at. Some that have been half mulched like this one and some that have been there all summer. So I was very keen to start testing the temperature of all the beds. One end versus the other, heavily mulched versus lightly mulched, and then I tested the temperature of a couple of wheelbarrows of coffee grounds that I got to put in the base of these two last vegetable beds. Look at the temperature of this. It's quite amazing. Now, I did talk about putting in some sort of hotbed in the newest bed that I'm about to plant up today. But after checking with the thermometer, I don't need to do that. Surprisingly to me that this one is quite warm. Now, warmer up the other end that has straw on top of it. I find it quite fascinating that putting an inch or so of straw across the top versus this other end that didn't have any, and there's a few degrees difference. With that in mind, now when I plant this up, I will be planting the more established plants this end that has no straw on it. I will be putting straw on it, but has no straw on. And the much warmer end, I will be direct sowing seeds into. Because we are at the end of autumn and I want to get those seeds going as fast as possible. So that's my plan with this garden bed. I am loving this thermometer. It is now my new thing where I run around testing the soil temperature. Now with this, it does have a pH level as well, and it can tell you if the compost pile is wet or dry, but that is for compost. It is not for a garden bed. I did look at trying to get a more garden soil thermometer, but they were in the old style thermometers. My beds are quite open soil. I don't think I'd be wanting to stick this sort of thermometer into the ground. I think they're a bit more delicate. So this has been perfect. And what surprised me was the heat that coffee grounds, just sitting in a wheelbarrow, it's a big builder's wheelbarrow, the temperature that it got to. Now this is 21 down the straw end and it drops to 16 down this other end that had no straw on it. That is quite a difference really when you're sowing things into the ground. I just had to quickly take care of this because I was back and forth, up and down there, and I like efficiency. And moving things out of my way is going to make it so much more efficient walking up and down there. I've got some plants. They're ready to be placed into the garden beds. Yeah, there it is, 16 degrees down this end. So I'm going to put the advanced Brussels sprout seedlings down this end, then going into cauliflowers and cabbages, and then sow these seeds down that end where it's warmest. I will then put a cover over it and make sure the birds don't dig into them. The cabbage I'm trying this time is the red cabbage, ruby red, and I've got more of the mini cauliflowers. I love how those have grown in the other garden bed, so I'm going to continue sowing some of those. And these are the Brussels sprouts that I potted up from a $5 investment of a punnet of Brussels sprouts. I had this in mind that I wanted to plant them here, and now they are beautiful, well-grown, advanced seedlings that I can put in here, and they're going to hopefully take off and grow quite fast. Now, I love to space out the bed and just sort of get a rough idea of where I want things. Things sometimes don't end up in the same spot, but it's good to have an idea and space things out. I will be looking for something to plant in around these bigger seedlings. There's the cauliflower mini white. Got 2 punnets of those, and I will plant them in pairs. And also the cabbage I will plant in pairs. And there's another punnet of those. I am adding another 2 rows of the cosmic purple carrots, some parsnips, and these red spring onions. So to start with, like always, I trimmed the lower leaves that can be smaller or a bit damaged. These I've kept in check, so they are okay, but the straw will come up higher around the plants, so I do not want any lower leaves resting on the straw. And I'm going to put the little raspberry cane supports back around them while they establish here in this bed. This is up the other end, so it will get a lot more wind than the things in the bed down the other end. So they will need their supports for now until they get a hold, and then they can have something bigger. Getting them all planted up. I think they look happier even just getting them in the ground. It's good to see them out of the pots. And I have saved a few I will be taking to the school. Now on to planting out the cauliflower minis. I'm very curious to see how big the mini cauliflowers get to. Hopefully they're not tiny one serve for one person. Maybe if anyone has grown them, you could let me know in the comments. I'm not sure how many of these I should be planting or whether I should just move on. I do have the purple cauliflowers planted as well, but it will be interesting. I like to trial a different variety, and these were available and quite cheap to get in the ground this late, so I'm all for trialing. Now on to the ruby red cabbage. I have 2 punnets here. I don't think I'm going to squish them all in here. I'm going to plant 1 row because I really want to separate and make sure that the carrots have enough room or more room, and I'm going to save a punnet for later on. But I'm going to plant these in pairs. I planted the other green and red cabbages in the other 2 beds in pairs, and they will just have to jostle for space. I don't want to break them up too much and damage any of the roots. I just want them to get going as fast as they can and get established. Once again, trimming off all the lower leaves so they don't rest on the straw, and I will be adding raspberry cane supports to the cauliflower and these cabbages. Make sure that the birds don't dig them out and that they don't get blown around and snapped off by the wind. I'm just getting these wire covers ready so I know exactly where to sow the seeds into, and my spacing then will be set, and I can easily move the straw out of the way and get the topsoil exposed, and then I can put the seeds in. I am top dressing the seeds with a little bit of just basic potting mix. I find that the seeds come through that a lot easier than the topsoil out of the bed. I've never grown these red spring onions, so I'm looking forward to seeing those popping up through the ground. And parsnips I have never grown, so this is a first for me. Having this kind of depth of soil opens up to a wide variety of different root vegetables that I can plant, so I'm excited to trial these and hopefully they'll grow really well. They are at the moment $12 a kilo to buy. So I'm looking forward to having some of these out of the garden and experimenting cooking with them. I've also got turnips growing in the seed snail, which I have to find a home for. They are through the soil and looking very happy, so I'll be looking forward to getting those in the ground as well. I'm just firming down that potting mix over the seeds, making sure there is good contact, and on with the cosmic purple carrots. I absolutely love these. I've talked about them before, the ones that I've grown, and I'm very happy to get another 2 rows in the garden beds. I do have another row planted up the other end of the garden, and they are through the ground and growing beautifully, along with some more beetroot. I won't be planting beetroot here in this garden bed, but maybe in the 4th garden bed. I love reusing things in my garden. I'm slowly working my way through tidying up these raspberry canes, although I won't use all the ones that are dead and dried out in there. I will have to get in there and weed the bed and mulch and feed that up, ready for spring flowering. These are so handy to have though, because they're just light enough to give the support you need, meaning I then don't have to go and buy anything. So it's a good idea to look around and just see what you can and can't reuse. You might remember a couple of weeks ago, I had mentioned that I direct sowed some iceberg lettuce seeds straight into this garden bed, and to make sure the birds didn't dig them out because they were attacking this bed quite badly, I laid over some curtains and they have seeded underneath. So I'm very, very happy with that. Now, because I was really curious about whether I could make some sort of in-ground composting hotbed type thing in the other bed, which I don't need to do because that is warm enough. This one here is cooler, and I have a bit of ground here that's where the beetroot and the carrots came out of. I'm going to just see an experiment with this. I'm digging out a hole the size of the terracotta pot. The pot has no base in it. It cracked off many years ago, and I use it just to put over things if I want to protect a plant. So I'm just going to sink that down to a base layer of rocky dirt. It was a base layer that I put in and then layered composted material and good topsoil on top of. So this pot sinks right down to it, and then I'm going to fill it with coffee grounds and green waste, and I'm going to keep stacking it up, seeing if it will compost hot. Now, I may be crazy, but I don't know. I'm interested in giving this a go anyway. And at the least, the worms will come in and be happy breaking down some extra materials. So I don't know. We'll see. If coffee grounds can heat up a builder's wheelbarrow full, then I don't know. Maybe it can keep the heat in a pot. I'm not sure. I may be crazy, but I like an experiment in the garden, so why not? Let's go for this. That's what I was thinking. Either way, I will keep you posted on what is happening with the hot coffee pot, and if I don't try it, then it's just going to keep playing on my mind. But if I try it and it works or it doesn't work, then at least I know. Because I got these coffee grounds out of that wheelbarrow and they were so warm in there, I can feel the heat in them. So while I'm organizing what I'm going to do with this, I'm covering it up with straw, hoping just to keep that heat in it. I'm not quite sure how this works. I'm guessing. So here it is. This is the heat in it, 26 degrees, and it's in that small pot. It gets down to around the pot, which is the internal of the bed. It's down to 16. So I'm going to play this by planting these cabbages around the edge of the pot, just a little out, so they've got enough room to grow. And then I'm going to get some spinach and plant around that as well, because spinach, it likes winter. I mean, the cabbage likes winter also, but I want to see if the warmth will just spur them on a little faster. So playing science here. I don't know. Maybe people have done this. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's getting late and it's time for me to tuck in my capsicum and eggplants for the night, and it's time for me to get inside. Solar lights are on, so it means that it is getting dark, and I've had such an enjoyable time in the garden. I've got so many things planted up. I've got my experiment underway. It's been playing on my mind for weeks now. I'm going to make sure I get heavy mulch over my beds to lock in that heat. I've got some curtains here to cover over before I go in. All my little seedlings are looking very happy. And I've got my 4th garden bed foundations done. That needs more base layer of gravelly dirt, and then I can get some top layers in them. I'm loving these Brussels sprout leaves. I love to go out and look at them. They've just turned in and looking so beautiful. The broccoli bambino, nothing gets big enough because I keep nibbling on the little shoots. Here's one now, and I'm going to eat it. They're so delicious.